Good evening and welcome to Monday, the 29th of June. I'm assuming that's where it is for most of us. If you're somewhere different, if it's a different day for you, welcome as well. Thank you for joining for this History News Live. Now, a few things. You'll notice I'm not in front of a green screen. That's because where I normally film in front of the green screen, it is hotter than the sun. So I'm upstairs in the office. So I have also got a fan at my feet. So I'm hoping that the mic isn't being too distorted by the fact that I literally have a fan blowing directly into my face. However, I have also been sent a wonderful picture backdrop that I would like you to be able to guess. So I'm going to put it up, but it's not going to stay up because it's a bit distorted on account of the lack of green screen. But here I am. So while we're having our chats and hellos, this came from Steve. Other way. Tell me if you can guess what I am in front of. While we're doing that, let's say some hellos to everybody. Hello, Lizzie. Thank you so much for joining. The antique little girl. I'm thrilled you're able to listen to live as well. Thank you so much. Hello, Steve. Hi, nice to see you. Thank you for joining. Hello to Shane. The children are well. They are overheated, as we all are, but apart from that, doing good. Hello, Wheezy. Thank you so much for joining. And Jessie, Snudpuckle, hello. Hello, Venomous Care Bear. Thank you for letting me know the sound is working. That's very helpful. Ricky coming in from Southern California. I think that's what that contraction means. I'm going to guess that's the thing. Jessie, you would think it'd be hot upstairs. However, where I normally film is in the kitchen, and that's where the cooking happens, not by me. Let's be clear. My husband does all the cooking. He is a wonder and a very patient human. So there was lasagna cooked for me and the children tonight with garlic bread. So that's added to the sheer temperature downstairs. Also, it's where the dog hangs out a lot of the time, and he doesn't like me sitting quietly doing anything. He likes to be up in my face and in my business. So this is the way I can shut this door, and he can't get to me. Hello, Kiwi morning. Kathleen, thank you so much for coming. 'Tis not Downton. It's not a castle either, Snudpuckle. Steve said he used his drone to take this. I mean, I think drone shots are so cool. Once I'm genuinely thinking about investing in a drone, because sometimes I go to places and I think it would be really cool to include a shot. Like, for example, when we're at Corfe Castle or when I go to Dover, I think to myself, my gosh, if I could just put a drone up right now, I'd get some really cool shots. So I'm thinking about maybe the next, because I like, what I do is when I, get paid out from the channel and stuff, I like to reinvest into equipment for the channel. So maybe that's something that I can think about just before we do taxes next year. There may have been a farm. There may be a farm now. So the building is not necessarily a farm. Brian, would anyone in Tudor era England have made lasagna? I don't think they would have made anything close to a lasagna unless you conflate putting like beef in pastry. That's probably it's very much a pie kind of a thing. So they may put mince in a pie. I don't think layers of pasta. I you know what? I don't know when pasta is invented. If Miss Dr. Cat is watching, then maybe he can Google it and tell me when pasta was invented. But I don't believe it was known in Tudor England. So Wheezy says, you went to the most entertaining performance of Midsummer Night's Dream at the weekend. Set in 1920 Chicago, mob bosses speakeasy. That sounds phenomenal. Oh, I love that. How cool is that? Brilliant. Jessie says, so your wish list now is a drone and a metal detector. Correct. MJ's garden is in a monastery. Abbey. It is religious. It's a religious building. Oh, Brian suggests it could be a myth, but where Marco Polo introduced pasta to Italy. No idea. Interesting. Steve might have given you a clue here. In the Lake District, hard not fort. Hard not fort. My geography is terrible, so I can't tell you if these things are close together. But maybe that's a clue. That could be a clue. Venomous Care Bear points out that pasta, as we know, it wasn't common in the UK till the 18th century. I didn't realize it was that late, but yes. So, alas, no Tudors. Alas. Wheezy says pasta brought back by Marco Polo from China. The noodle, yes, that makes sense. Interesting. Right. So, where I am sat in front of currently, the photograph sent to me by Steve is Lanercost Abbey, which he pointed out to me is the place that Edward I uses his base for the invasion of Scotland just before he died on Solway Firth. So Scotland is near the Lake District. I know that much geography. I know that you can drive through the Lake District to get to Scotland. So that was indeed a clue, I think. I'm going to pop this off now because it is glitching, but it's an absolutely fabulous photograph. Thank you so much for sending it over. And before we kick off, I will just tell you what we're going to be doing today. So we have got some, first of all, welcome if you're joining live, and if you're also watching on the playback, thank you so much for taking the time. We have got today updates. We've got repatriation / decolonization news. We've got new news. We've got ding dongs. We've got events and exhibitions. As always, articles are listed and numbered in the description box. Those numbers correspond to the numbers that you're going to see on screen and connected to the slides that you're going to be shown. I've got lots of people to thank for sending me articles. I have also seen some articles coming in yesterday and today. So if we haven't covered those topics in this one, then they will be in next month's session. So let us, without further ado then, hop in to what we're doing. Let's start with our thank yous. I need to thank, for sending me articles, Joseph, Yvonne, Steve, Jessie, Katie, Elverta, Snudpuckle, Shane, Sarah, Adrianne, Beth, Llew, Jin, Maia and Kathryn. Thank you so much for taking the time. As always, it really does mean so much that people notice things on their travels and they have the time and the mental energy to send them to me. It really does mean ever so much. So we're going to hop into our updates, and what I'm also going to do is I'm going to show the comments on stage in the way that I believe we like them, which is a medium font and tall. Nope. Wide is how we do it. So there we go. That should be helpful to people. Is that how we do it? Regular? Maybe regular. Alas, if you are watching on a mobile, that does mean that the comments are over my face. But the articles are still visible. So onwards and upwards. Our first update is the secret of the pyramid, how the pyramids might be built, might finally have emerged. A study led by researcher Dr. Xavier Landreau, which has been published, proposes that the ancient Egyptians built the Great Pyramids at Giza using a network of temporary ramps that went directly into the monument's outer layers, which allowed workers to move the stone blocks into place while the structure rose around them. So this is something that's been debated for millennia, how this happened. And also frequently we have seen people insinuating that because we couldn't understand it, it must be aliens. Now, there are lots of issues around suggesting that things that come from other cultures, specifically from parts of the world that aren't European, the insinuation that aliens must have built something because that it predates the expertise that we have in Europe comes under a need to decolonize our thinking, I feel. But yes, this is very interesting. They are suggesting that rather than relying on a single giant ramp stretching all across the desert, this is suggesting that there were in fact multiple temporary pathways all along the pyramid's edges that allowed teams to move stone blocks upwards and keep construction moving at a pace fast enough to meet the timelines required. And additionally, of course, as with so much building, wherever in the world it's happening, these great edifices, pyramids, cathedrals, etc., castles as well. The thing to bear in mind is that when you are able or willing to enforce people to work for you, either for nothing or for very little, in conditions where you don't give a shiny whatever about health and safety, you can work very quickly. It's possible to work very quickly. When you don't necessarily care about people dying in the process, and it doesn't get reported. But one of the things I often say when I'm talking to tour groups is when we're thinking about things like great medieval abbeys or cathedrals, there is definitely a body count attached to the construction of these things. Definitely. And it's a body count that we don't have any comprehension of, really and truly, particularly when you're working at such heights. If you see what they use for kind of old winches and the old kind of forms of cranes, best case scenario, you're having life-altering injuries happening fairly regularly. But I think there's also a massive body count. Steve points out it's that people can't conceive that the people of the past were not organized enough to undertake such a huge task. I agree. It's something that I talk about a lot with the girls from History After Dark, this ease and I think comfort, question mark, that we seem to have with assuming that our ancestors were stupid, or that we are. So it's very paternalistic and patronizing. And of course, there are things that we have discovered and that technology has moved on and there have been advances. However, in those advances, I question whether, given a situation and a scenario, whether a person living today in 2026 is actually more equipped or skilled or intelligent and less naive, shall we say, and I mean naive in the kind of zoological sense of the word. Is it really the case that is true of us compared to our historical antecedents? If we were dropped somewhere without our smartphones, without all of our mod cons, what is our survival rate compared to somebody of a similar class and status living in 1500? I wonder whether we have to tell ourselves that they were stupid, because actually we might have to consider that they may have known more than we do. I mean, look, we are fully reliant on things that aren't made by us in many ways. So I do think it's interesting. Snudpuckle suggests we are the same people, just with different tech. I think we are the same people with different tech, but I sometimes wonder and question whether that tech and also the commodification of things, whether that potentially means that we have in many ways become more naive in the zoological sense of the word, is my question or query. But anyway, this study, they've used computer modeling. They suggest the system might have supported an intense flow of materials to get this construction happening on schedule. They think actually these pyramids could have been assembled in as little as 13.8 to 20.6 years. But if you include the quarrying, it might have gone from 20 to 27 years. So that's still relatively quick. When we consider that the White Tower in the Tower of London that's construction begins then there somewhere in the late 1070s, the White Tower isn't completed until till after 1100. William the Conqueror's dead. So we're looking at about the same time to build the White Tower in 1070 to 1100. I think that's quite interesting too. Jessie points out we're reliant on modern tech. Even 100 years ago, sailors navigated by the stars and a sextant. Now we have radar, AIS, GPS. Look, I can't drive to work without using a sat nav. If I'm driving over to Hampton Court Palace, which I don't do all the time, but I'm reliant on that. I travel by tube all of the time, tube and bus. I still check every journey via the app, City Map. Other apps might be available because I want to make sure that I'm going the fastest route, that nothing's been cancelled, etc. So I am using an app for everything, every day, all day. Equally, like if I've got a bit of a fever, or if my kids have got a bit of a fever, I'm straight on to Dr. Google. Whereas I know that 500 years ago, if my child had a fever, I'd know exactly what herbs to go and get from the hedgerow to bring that fever down. I don't have that connection to stuff. Brian says, fair, but we are liking how people in any era thought they were more advanced than people in an earlier era. Yes and no. If though we think about, the Renaissance and this sort of sense of rediscovery and return to interest in classical texts and the Greco-Roman modeling and all of that kind of stuff and classical understandings, actually that is really looking back to centuries and centuries before and respecting it in ways that I don't necessarily know that we do today. And I wonder how much that has to do with the increasingly secular society in which we live. I wonder if you live in a world where your hours, your calendar are in many ways marked out, particularly in sort of a Judeo-Christian context, where your hours, your days are marked out by biblical study, by doctrine in faith, etc. If that is how you live your life and your community lives its life and your king lives their life, etc., if those texts have that understanding, that meaning, that direction, do you think it's possible that that thought from the same period is also valued in a higher way? I'm spitballing here. I'm wondering if there is a connection. Snudpuckle asks, can modern humans survive without our modern tech? Some people probably can. Probably. Do you know who? Probably the people that a lot of us kind of raise an eyebrow at as preppers, right? The doomsday preppers. They probably could. They probably figured out a way to do it. Venomous Care Bear, you'd be looking for meadowsweet plants or willow bark for treating a fever. You might have meadowsweet growing in your home garden. I may well, but here's the thing. I wouldn't be able to recognize it. And I'm so disconnected from it. Like when people go out and they pick mushrooms and they know what mushrooms you can eat safely. Not a clue. I can recognize a strawberry. I can recognize a blackberry. I couldn't recognize these plants. Not with the level of surety required, I've used apps for that too, to try and recognize plants, but I'm not sure enough of those that I'd give them to my children. But 500 years ago, I'd be able to look at it and I'd recognize it in the same way I'd recognize a strawberry. Brian, it's also a memorization has changed, which isn't the same as knowledge. If one knows he or she can look something up in seconds anywhere he or she is, it probably affects people's memory. That's really interesting as well. But in that, I think we're starting to get onto like, is tech forcing a kind of evolution in the way in which our brains and bodies work? I don't know. Interesting. But yes, so this study, though, that we're talking about here does not definitively prove how the pyramid was constructed, but it does provide a new testable theory for one of these one of the world's most enduring mysteries, and it potentially could bring researchers one step closer to understanding how the pyramids were built. So very interesting. And as and when more stuff comes out, of course, I will put another update in. Next up, this is beautiful. The book is beautiful. The story is also really cool. Researchers have found a way to study the DNA preserved inside ancient parchment manuscripts, and they can do it without compromising the documents. So they're looking at the animal skins that were used to produce manuscripts from the 8th century through to the early 1900s. They are analysing the genetic material from those skins, so the vellum, if you will. And through doing so, they've got new information about how livestock was farmed, how the parchment itself was produced, and also trading patterns across various regions. This is fascinating. So for over 1,000 years, parchment is what you're writing on in Europe and much of the Mediterranean. Unlike paper, it comes from animal hides, sheep, goat, other cattle. There are millions of documents on parchments in libraries and archives around the world. But, of course, testing these things does become quite risky. What the researchers have done is they have rubbed this parchment with something called a cytology brush. This is the type of brush that's used in medical testing. I'm not sure if it's one of those, like a cytology brush. Is it one of the ones they use to kind of collect cells from a cheek swab, or maybe if you're a lady, from a more intimate location? So they use this, so it takes traces of the cells, and then you can sequence the DNA. They managed to find 351 samples from the manuscripts, 58% of which passed strict quality tests that were required for species identification. Among the authenticated samples, they found that 129 came from sheep, 42 from cattle, 32 from goats, and 1 from a pig skin. So this then positions us in a way to understand how farming patterns are working in the medieval and early modern period. It's interesting that English manuscripts rely heavily on sheepskin parchment, that sheep are about 80% of the authenticated English samples, which of course makes loads of sense if we think about how reliant England was on the wool trade for centuries and centuries. So I do sort of want to do a video at some point on the history of English wool, specifically on the wool pack in Parliament. But I'm wondering if that is just far too niche and nerdy. I've had it on my list for ages, but I've always stopped myself by going, who's going to want to watch a 15-minute video on the wool sack in Parliament? It's just me that wants to talk about it. Oh, maybe. So apparently we're told that a 12th century manuscript, English manuscript, got special attention during the project. They sampled every bifolium or folded sheet in the manuscript. All of the tested pages were sheep parchment. They then compared this manuscript with earlier studies of other medieval books, which appeared to mix calf skin and sheepskin in deliberate patterns. So Southern European manuscripts have a more balanced mix of goat, sheep, and cattle. Ethiopian manuscripts mainly use goat skin. Samples from West Asia rely entirely on sheepskin in the results they found. So this is a new type of study. It's called biocodicology. If I pronounce that wrong, I apologize. Biocodicology. Manuscripts being examined through biological traces preserved inside of them. They found from doing this that one medieval manuscript included a single goatskin page placed after a biblical passage mentioning a young goat. So that's really interesting to me, that it just, the kind of the materiality of text as object and as artwork, and particularly when you've got illuminated manuscripts, that kind of materiality, that almost, considering as well it's monks that are making them, that there is almost a prayer-like or meditative quality to their creation, that they are themselves a created act of faith. It's really interesting that you've got references to a biblical passage about a young goat, and then they've used a goat page. Really interesting. It suggested that between 1 to 3 billion parchment fragments and documents still survive worldwide. These materials are a biological record that can show us farming, trade, faith, and manuscript production across more than 1,000 years. So this is really interesting, and I look forward to this being spread out more, and more of this sort of research being done. A couple of people talking about, a few people here talking about how they would be interested in the wool pack. Okay, all right, I'll look into it. Okay, cool. If there's some interest, I'll give it a go. Just as long as it's not just me. Jennifer, when you were in university in textile science, they looked at antique fabric, cotton, and by looking at the cells, they could predict where on the planet the cotton was harvested. This is so cool. Like, these surviving objects is so. One of the things I always say to in one of the sessions I lead at the Tower, I talk about, for example, a primary source that describes Richard III's appearance with his one shoulder higher than the other. Then I show them the forensic information about the king in the car park. And so I say, so what we've got here is we've got a archaeological dig and forensic study that corroborate what this primary source is telling us. We've got corroboration. Then I point out the fact that going on from that, you have that example of the experimental archaeology, where they found somebody alive today who had a similar curvature to Richard's, and they tested the hypothesis, because it was hypothesized that Richard wouldn't be able to do the fighty stuff that he's reported as doing if he had the curvature he had. And when they first put him on a horse, he really struggled. And so at first they were like, well, maybe it's because he's not been raised to do it. He's not been trained to do it. But then what they did was they put him in armor that was made bespoke to fit his body. And then they put him on a medieval saddle with a high back and a high front. And all of a sudden, the pain that he was having, the faulty kind of range of motion that he was experiencing, they were massively alleviated. And so I said, so what we've got here is we've got a primary textual source that is backed up or corroborated by what we see in the ground, that is then further explained or contextualized by experimental archaeology. However, experimental archaeology is a relatively new phenomenon in the kind of field of history, etc. So trust and believe, we aren't at the end of this storytelling, and stuff like this, these investigations of manuscript using new techniques to understand them better and to place them within a global or national or indeed global framework. This is the beginning, and there will be more and more stuff. History isn't done. it's constantly evolving, and our understanding constantly changes. And I think that's really important to remember as a historian. So I constantly try to remember that if I'm not sure, that's fine. I don't know. Maybe we need to do more research. Steve did textile engineering at Bolton 40 years ago, looking into dyeing. I find dyeing cloth is really fascinating. Jessie saw the documentary with the young man in the armor. It was really interesting. And you know what? I don't think it got anywhere near the coverage. It's certainly not something that I see getting replayed. Like, it was on TV, and I haven't been able to find it. It's probably on somewhere in the depths of YouTube. But I think it was incredibly fascinating. And that kind of connection to the king in the car park. Yeah. Susie Q, this chat is very full of clever people. And thank you for joining it and adding your clever as well. That's, as I've said so many times, I could not be happier or more privileged by the community that has come together around this channel. I look at other people's channels. I look at the communities they have. I look sometimes at the quite aggressive and upsetting comments that come up on various people's social medias, and I'm so fortunate to have all of you. So thank you so much. Brian asks, has there ever been an update on the DNA tested the remains in Westminster Abbey, the Prince in the Tower? They have never been DNA tested. There has been calls to DNA test them. I think there was some talk that King Charles III may be more willing to allow it, as if it was the Queen that was barring it. I think it's really important to kind of clarify what this would require. It would require a court order. It would also require Westminster Abbey, presumably, to be on board. You probably have to talk to the King, maybe also the ABOC, Archbishop of Canterbury, to figure it out and agree to it. I don't know what the basis of the court order would be, though. That's my thought. These are individuals buried in consecrated ground, with the expectation that they will rest in peace. I don't know what legal challenge or offer one could make currently to justify them being disinterred. Because although a crime potentially has been committed, we're so far past anybody being prosecuted for it that it's not a criminal case, really. Additionally, inheritance isn't going to be affected. So the two reasons that you would get an exhumation order for DNA testing, crime, inheritance, they don't stand up. So I don't know how that would happen. And people have seen the documentary on the gentleman who wore the armor, and they are, yeah, it is great. I'm glad you thought so too. I thought it was brilliant. T-Bean, you reap what you say. You created the space community. That's incredibly kind of you. Thank you very much. But also, you know, there are lovely people who don't have as wonderful communities. So there's definitely an element of luck as well. So thank you very much. That's very kind. Venomous, I doubt there'd be usable DNA left in the remains. That's also another question. From my understanding, and my understanding is slight because I haven't seen the remains, obviously, they were fragmentary. It's my understanding. They were fragmentary remains. So I don't know if there are, for example, still teeth or marrow. I don't know whether it's DNA testable. Brian, we don't know if it was really them when they were buried. So they are, the order to bury them in Westminster Abbey is one that happens during the reign of Charles II. They're located during the reign of Charles II. It's assumed by the people looking at them in the 1600s. They have a look. They go, oh, look, those are two boys. I don't know how they guessed that. 11 and 13 looks about right. The assumption is made they must be the Prince in the Tower. So they are placed on the orders of the king in what is now known as Innocents' Corner. I believe in the early 20th century, they were looked at again, but again, prior to there being DNA testing, it's a question mark. Tracy Borman has told me that when they were found, I think at the time of the Charles II, possibly in Westminster Abbey, but either way, when they were found with silk velvet, which does connote royalty. It's silk velvet's really expensive. But again, as I always say, even if they were exhumed and we DNA tested them and it was proved that they were the Prince of the Tower, I don't think that technology is where it needs to be for us to A, determine a cause of death, particularly if they die of some fast-acting illness or even a poison or suffocation or anything else. So we can't determine cause of death. I also don't think that at this far of a remove, our scientific understanding is sufficient that we can pinpoint a date of death with enough surety or enough of a kind of small window that we can say exactly when they died, specifically in whose reign they died. So if we can't find a cause of death and we can't find a time of death, all we've got is identity. So we then still have, I believe, many of the questions left remaining. I think. And this is the other thing. What would happen if we could prove they're not the Prince in the Tower? Do we just put them in some different corners? So what if we do have the remains of two nameless children now, who for centuries have been permitted to rest in peace among the kings with a name attached to them? Now, if we discover they aren't the princes, that tomb gets pulled out. Maybe the memorial states, they have to be changed. But also, what happens to the remains of these children? Where are they then buried? And what care and consideration will go towards that? That's my other question. But yes, fascinating DNA stuff going on here. Another cool update that is also a mesh detector fun thing. My husband's just messaged about the Prince in the Tower. How did they know they were boys? Lynx Africa in Jaws. I love you. So I don't know if Lynx is a global brand. I think it might be Axe in America. But yes, presumably as they opened up the box which held the remains, a pungent scent of the Lynx effect came out, and that's how they knew they were boys. Because of course they didn't. It's very hard to sex a skeleton today, particularly if they haven't been through puberty. So why there is an assumption that they're two boys, how they possibly guessed that they were 10, 9 and 13, how they guessed that, don't know. So a mesh detectorist find might unlock a hidden history. A mesh detectorist has found a copper alloy object, and they think this was made to create the decorative metal foils for high status military helmets. It's a die stamp the only one of its kind found in Britain, and very similar in size and design to panels that are found on the famous Sutton Hoo helmet. This suggests that helmets that were thought previously to have been Scandinavian may in fact have been made in England. So Dr. Andrew Richardson, who is a fines liaison officer for KCC and the Kent officer for the Portable Antiquities Scheme, said, quote, "This small but remarkable find provides important evidence that helmets like the Sutton Hoo example could have been made in Kent, highlighting the skill and connections of early medieval craft workers in the country." So this little tablet dates to the late 6th or early 7th century, and it has been determined to be a treasure by the coroner. It's hoped that it's going to be acquired and displayed at Beanie House of Art and Knowledge in Canterbury. And as and when we get information about that, I will let you know. Rebecca, it's 6 a.m. in Sydney. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining. Your 3-year-old is up watching dinosaurs next to me. Oh, brilliant. Can I ask what dinosaurs, and do you partake in Vegosaurs? Because Vegosaurs is beloved in this house. If you have a small human, the Vegosaurs are a delight. We love them over here. And I think also dinosaurs in general. I did, though, once make the mistake of there was a they'd made on the BBC a kind of dinosaur animal world, like it was sort of like an Attenborough documentary. Rebecca, yes, Vegosaurs. Vegosaurs they are elite. Ginger is the best. I love. They have also on BBC, they made this sort of dinosaur nature documentary in the style of David Attenborough. And as we know, with David Attenborough documentary, sometimes animals get eaten. And so my son had a friend over, and the friend was like, "Oh, look, dinos." Watch that. So we put it on, and the friend was like, "This is so cool." And then there was just an absolute dino massacre. And my son was like, "Mummy, Mummy, what's happening? Mummy, why? I don't like it." So yes, be careful of your dino explorations on the iPlayer, because it can sometimes traumatize your 4-year-old, who he was at the time. But Vegosaurs is elite. Brian points out that exhumations happen more in the United States than Great Britain. So they exhumed Zachary Taylor, Jessie James, or Lee Harvey Oswald. Really? I didn't know about that. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. I wonder why that culturally would be. Because obviously, because it's still consecrated ground, right? I mean, the law must just be different. The law just must be different. I don't know why. That's really interesting. I'll have to look into that. Next up, we've got some repatriation news. We're going to hop on in. This is our one repatriation news. Cambodia has secured the return of 2 more Khmer treasures from a New York museum. This brings the total recovered antiquities going back to Cambodia to more than 2,270. So this is part of growing international efforts to reverse the decades of plunder. The New York Metropolitan Museum of Art has returned them. This is they were received on the 11th of June, having been seized and transferred by the Office of the Manhattan District Attorney in New York. This follows a series of successful repatriation efforts. Back in December 2023, 14 antiquities went back. The latest returned objects are a sandstone. Try that again. A sandstone. That's really hard word to say. Sandstone lintel depicting a kala or Kurtimurka, which is the motif from the pre-Angkorian period, so dating from the 7th or 8th century. And there's also a 10th century sandstone sculpture that is identified as a demon called Hirayakipsu. So this came from the Prasat Chen temple at Kokur, the archaeological complex. The ministry in Cambodia described the repatriation as another example of growing international cooperation in combating the illicit trade in cultural property. They expressed their appreciation to Manhattan DA, you guessed it, Alvin Bragg, and also Assistant District Attorney Matthew Bogdanos. I mean, they're still doing great work. Still doing great work. Besides these latest objects, a 7th century sandstone head of Harihara was surrendered by a private collector after it was smuggled out of Cambodia into Thailand in 1970. It was then acquired by an American. So still many more things to go back. These things were removed. So the ones that come out in the 70s, that's happening. There's a conflict, and conflict leads to widespread looting. There is, of course, now greater public awareness, and repatriated artifacts, questions about repatriations, questions about looting. It is much more commonplace that people will know and understand that this happened. And so I think people are much more aware, and many more of your, in quotes, average museum visitor, they for first of all, they know the word provenance. Like I don't know how common discussions about provenance in communities that weren't either in the antiquities selling business or museum curation. I don't know how common questions of provenance were 20 or 30 years ago. But now I think it's much more common. Much, much more common. Just looking at the comments about their question about consecrated ground. It seems to be quite different in the States, the consecrated ground. So yes, there must be a legal difference, I think, and potentially it's surrounded by consecrated ground. So now we're going to move on to the new news, and I'm just gonna flag that the next one may make this part of the episode a no eating part of the episode. I'm gonna try. How am I going to word this? I'm going to try not to be judgmental, but I have feelings about this. Do you know what? Let's just have a look at it. Right. New news. Here we go. Scientists have made sourdough bread using yeast found in a 5,000-year-old mummy. Help me understand this. These are yeast strains that were harvested from Otzi the Iceman. There is also a plan to brew beer. I don't know why we're doing this. For me, I read this and went, just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. Just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. Right, so we know Otzi. He's the Iceman, very well preserved, discovered in 1991. They were studying the microorganisms. While doing that, they extracted yeast. And then they made sourdough bread. You know what? 2020, the pandemic has got a lot to answer for. Everybody and their sourdough starter. This is wild. Quote, eventually we obtained a completely normal dough that rose within 24 hours. Define completely normal. You keep using this phrase. I don't think you know what it means. Basically, just like with ordinary yeast, we made some really good dough with it. Did you eat it? Did you eat it? Did you eat it? Oh, I've never baked bread before, and it showed. The result definitely had room for improvement, but as I said, these were our first experiments. We want to pursue this further and involve specialised research team from the food sector in the process. Bread is currently one of the obvious applications we're considering. Another is beer. Why? Why though? Why are we doing this? They've discussed this with experts from a German brewer, Weidenhepstan. Otzi's long been the focus of fascination. His body preserves the oldest tattoo ever. Yes, 61 markings. It's also interesting how he died high up in the mountains about 5,300 years ago. It seems he was shot in the back, so it's one of the oldest cold case murders. Okay, why? I don't understand. I don't understand why we're making bread and beer off of him. My husband just gone, nope. I don't. Am I just being like a terrible neophyte and going, oh, it's a new thing, I don't like it? Or is this weird and gross? Is this people that perhaps need to like come out of the lab and talk to their friends about what they're doing? Do you think their mates would be like, yeah, that's really cool, brother, let me have some of your corpse bread? I don't think I like it. I don't think I like it. Wasn't it was a thing to add ground mummy's tea? Yeah. They definitely ate mummy powder. I don't think that's normal either. I don't think that's good. I don't know about that. It's not that weird. You can harvest natural yeast from apple trees. Do you know what? It's I'm gonna be so for real with you. It's harvesting the natural yeast is not the weird part. If it was from an apple tree, I would not. I'll be honest with you. I probably wouldn't have put it in the history news. It's not the location. The origin point is what makes it weird to me. I'm gonna be so for real. Scarlett, so we should look at the history this time? Absolutely not. I don't condone that message under any circumstances. Snudpuckle was also confused when she submitted the article. Yes. I don't know. I don't know. It is weird. It's yeah. Steve, you're right. Do you know what? It is interesting to know the yeast strains are still alive. These cultures are still alive. I do think that's interesting. I think that understanding the kind of the microbiome of Otzi, the kind of survival of that sort of thing, I do. I think that scientific interest that then becomes gastronomy. I think that the lab experiment should not go in your mouth. I think the lab experiment should not go in your mouth. That's what I'm going to say. Unless it's a tablet or a medication, preferably one that's not made from people bits. Sorry. Oh, Beth. Just about dinner time here in Ontario, and I'm beginning to feel nauseous. I did, and this is why I said I thought it might be a food stopper. I thought it might be. I think it's weird. I equally think the mummy consumption was weird as well. I think putting mummy in paint was weird. I think it was weird. But then I'm a person that says I'm not going to display human remains on my channel. Guess what? The gap in this, there was a picture in this article. So when you go and search, you will see Otzi. Oh God, yeah, Jessie. This right. Soylent Green, it's people. It's people. The bread, it's people. The beer, it's people. No, incorrect. Incorrect. I'm not a fan. I disagree. Anyway, we're going to hop away. So, a marble head of Aphrodite has been found during beach work in Spain. This is southeastern Spain. They were doing a beach restoration project and they uncovered the sculpture. This is at the Alhambra beach. Nope, that's a lie. L'Alhambraba beach in Alicante. I saw what's the start of the world, Alhambra, and my brain closed the gap. Incorrect. They thought that originally when they were digging it, they'd found just an ordinary bit of stone. But then they found that it was, in fact, this Roman era bust dating, they think, to the 1st or 2nd century AD. It's being referred to as one of the most important Roman era sculpture finds because of its condition and the quality of it. They think it was created during the high Imperial Roman period when the influence of Rome is spreading all across Europe and the Mediterranean. And authorities have since paused construction work while they continue to excavate this site. The head itself is undergoing further testing and conservation work just to confirm its age and its authenticity. Archaeologists have said that the coastline around Alicante has a long connection to Roman settlement activity. In 2009, they found a Roman maritime villa linked to the Greek city of Lucentum that operated between the 3rd century BC and 4th century AD. They also found house foundations, rooms, Roman-era coins, pottery, including several well-preserved ceramic pieces. And it's thought that this marble head might once have belonged to an important coastal villa or perhaps a public Roman structure. The property may have belonged to a wealthy Roman resident because of its prime Mediterranean location. Jennifer asks, when did I decide not to show human remains in the channel? Think I missed the announcement. Not that I don't know if you had that choice or right by all means. Do you know what? It's when I started doing History News Live. So when I first was doing History News Live, I was just showing the articles as a whole. But the more we discussed repatriation and the more, for example, looking into the ways that First Nations people view not just human remains, but photographs of their ancestral communities, I realized that I needed to be a lot more sensitive to what I was doing and more thoughtful about it. And on top of that, thinking about questions around when they have those displays of anatomical human beings that have been stripped of their fascia or their muscle or whatever else. And there were questions about the provenance of those remains and whether people had signed up willingly, whether they were in fact prisoners that had no say in it, all those sorts of questions. And then I realized that, I make money from the channel. And I felt that by doing that, it was coming close to exploitation. To show human remains on a channel where I make a profit, I felt that was just it. I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I made that decision, and I don't think that it loses anything from it. Like, the news articles are still available. You can go and check them out. But I feel that also it just lessens the chance of somebody being distressed by what they might see. So those are my thinking. And I can't quite remember. It was well over a year ago now that I decided not to show human remains, maybe 2 or 3. But yeah, that's the policy on the channel now. So next up, we have got some kid archaeologists. Italian teenagers have found an 1,800-year-old luxury Roman house beneath their high school gym. My goodness. They are at school just steps from the Colosseum in Rome. You know, and they say some people have different upbringings, and they heard gossip and rumors about mysterious rooms hidden beneath their gym floor. I mean, my God, if they'd known about this when they were watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there'd be so many raves in those caves. It'd be unbelievable. But turns out there is more than a grain of truth to them. Students on several clandestine explorations, these kids sound cool, happened upon an ancient structure beneath their school. They told the teacher, who told the authorities, and then archaeologists turned up to take a more detailed look. They have announced that they have found a luxurious 2nd century villa. This is the Cavour Scientific High School, and it originally held a Catholic missionary congregation. The neighbourhood that it's in was incredibly important to Roman history. Unsurprising, it's right by the Colosseum. Claudia Marina, who is a history and Latin teacher at the high school, my God, what a time to be alive for her. My goodness, can you imagine? You teach Latin and history, and the school you do it in has got a Roman villa preserved beneath it. My gosh, I'd dine out on that for years. How amazing. Is the one who reported the student's discovery. Then it started getting excavated at the start of this year in 2026, and it was presented to the public at the end of May. It is a mid-2nd century house, likely owned by a member of the Umbrius family. We don't know much about this family, but they might have come from Samnium, which is south central Italy, not far from Pompeii. They have found figurative and floral frescoes on the walls, stucco decorations along the ceiling vaults of the villa. They found a mosaic with large irregularly shaped tiles. They found more recent graffiti from the students being naughty down there and other subterranean explorers in the 20th century. Only a portion of it's been explored so far, and it does apparently extend far beneath the school, so additional excavation might be carried out in future. Presumably they have to secure it so the school doesn't fall in as they go excavating further. So cool. Scarlett, that is rather fabulous. It is rather fabulous, I think. I mean, imagine being one of those kids. Imagine being the Latin teacher. So cool. We're staying with Rome. A miniature masterpiece is to be displayed for the first time. This is a Roman brooch. Isn't it absolutely gorgeous? It was found in Midlothian by, you guessed it, a metal detectorist. And it's going to go on show. Thought that it's probably made in Northern England. And it's going to be displayed at Roman Scotland, Life on the Edge of the Empire, which is going to open at the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh in November. This is the Pathhead brooch. It's described as a miniature masterpiece of craft working with exquisite details. This is a really fancy Roman piece, and it's been said, quote, whoever wore it would have been out to impress. I'm sure visitors will be dazzled by it when they see it up close. Further archaeological finds suggest there was also an Iron Age settlement in the area where the brooch was found, and that this was a community that engaged with Rome. It's got enamel that's been laid out in this zigzag pattern that we can see, alternating between red and yellow blocks. It dates from between 100 to 160 AD. It's thought that such a rare or valuable brooch was unlikely to have been available to buy or trade, so it might have been given as a gift to influence a local leader, perhaps more as a symbol of status and favour. So if you're up in Edinburgh in November, and it's going on till 28th of April 2027, Check it out. Let us know what you think. It does look incredibly cool. Jessie says it looks like a herringbone pattern. It does. The date's about 3,000 years ago. It's phenomenal. I love how bright the colours are. How amazing is that? Amazing. It almost looks like some kind of plait as well, like it's braided. Really interesting. Steve, up at Hadrian's Wall, saw 3 digs, one in Carlisle, where they allowed him to fly their dig and share it with the university. They found a piece of blue glass which they let you hold. That's so cool. Oh, amazing. Brilliant. Staying with Rome, these were found inside a wine vat in Israel near what was once the capital of the Roman province. These date back about 1,700 years. They were found on the last day of an excavation of an ancient villa, and it's now raising questions regarding the origins and connections to the nearby historic port of Caesarea, which was the capital of the Roman province of Judea in 6 CE. Digging out the wine press, there was something sticking in the ground, and they saw that it wasn't just pottery, it was marble. Then we've got 2 statues being revealed. They were found laying face down when they were excavated. It's thought that one was made to honor the founder of Sparta, which they're saying is a complicated thesis because historians only began mentioning him hundreds of years after he supposedly lived. They don't know if he's real or fictional. There's also a theory that it might be an orator as well. So one of the statues bears the inscription Lycurgus across its side. So this could be the founder of Sparta, or it could be the 4th century orator from Athens, unclear as to which. The second figure, who has the long beard and no immediately distinguishable feature, is more nebulous. But it's thought he might have been a philosopher or a leading thinker. This has been described as a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Quote, "It was very unexpected, but somehow really big discoveries always turn up on the excavation's very last day." An ancient Roman curse tablet found in the Netherlands contains rare Egyptian magic written in Greek. Now, there we go. So Dutch archaeologists have found a small lead tablet during excavation beneath Herleens town square. It signs on the site of a Roman military settlement that was in the province of Lower Germania. Dating to the 2nd century CE, this differs from most other curse tablets found in Northern Europe because the text is written in ancient Greek rather than Latin. These curses would be used for various reasons. They would sometimes bury them in places linked to supernatural forces, sometimes to perhaps gain an advantage in court cases, to target rivals in sport, business, or even personal relationships. This tablet is 9.3 by 4.8 centimeters. The inscription has been worn down, so it's difficult to recover. So they used reflectance transformation imaging, which combines photographs taken under different lighting conditions. And this helps to reveal tiny surface details that are hidden on the lead sheet. They found 3 separate character groups. One contained invocations to several deities and supernatural beings that are associated with Egyptian magical practices. Such texts rarely appear in this region. Most of them are from Northern Europe, use Latin and follow local Roman traditions. They also found 3 magical symbols known as characteres. These are signs that carry messages to divine or supernatural supernatural powers. And below those symbols, there are the names of 4 enslaved people, 2 men with Latin names and 2 women with Greek names. They're not sure what the purpose of this tablet is, But the inscription, they think, is either to target the individuals with the curse or was written on behalf of them against an unnamed person. The fact that 2 members of the group carry Latin names, they're the men, and women have Greek names, this is potentially indicates women might have come from Roman Egypt and brought a knowledge of Egyptian magical practices with them. So magic was important in Egyptian society, with which was being focused for protection, healing, as forming part of established religious life. Others, though, were for private interest and happened away from public view. This is going to go on display at the Hurley Museum, and they are planning to publish a full inscription as well, giving scholars an opportunity to study one of the most unusual Roman curse tablets in Northern Europe. Oh, Venomous points out they used the same technique with the Mona Lisa. They found her eyebrows and lashes with a different light. That's really interesting. It's the thing, all of these like techniques to uncover new stuff, super interesting. So when we get the inscription, I will let you know. I may not read it out loud, just in case it's some kind of incantation that opens a portal. Just can't really be doing with that on a Monday, or indeed any day. Look at this painting. Isn't it glorious? This has been found in Turkey, and it appears to shed light on the origins of Christianity or early Christianity. This is a really long article. So this is the section of it. Please go and check out the link because there's loads of really interesting stuff. What we see here is the image of Christ portrayed as the Good Shepherd. This was found last year in the Turkish city of Iznik. And it's among the 5 oldest proper images of Christ as an adult that's ever been found anywhere in the world, dating to the early mid-3rd century AD. It is the best preserved, very early image of Jesus ever found. It was found inside an exceptionally well-preserved, oxygen-depleted underground family tomb. Its pigments are in almost perfect condition, even though they were painted some 1800 years ago. You can see Christ's facial features. You can see the folds of his tunic, his hands, the distinct outline of the ram across his shoulders, visible and sharp. This is an understanding that we're getting here of how early Christians perceived Jesus. Interestingly, beardless, short cropped hair, and dressed in posh, upper class Roman clothes. Also, not blonde. Not a fair-skinned, fair-haired man, interestingly, too. What a beautiful painting. The colours are incredible, aren't they? Just fabulous. So cool. Steve points out a recent podcast where they discussed that the Judeans would certainly not have had beards. Yeah, it's so interesting when the way in which we conceive of power, authority, masculinity, and how that changes over time. Really interesting. Next up, another child archaeologist. This one found a Viking sword. I have to say the word that way. I love it. While on a school trip, a 6-year-old boy found an ancient Viking sword on a school trip in Norway. Thought to be 1,300 years old. It was uncovered by Henrik on a class trip to Gran, which is in Hadeland in Norway. He found a rusty piece of metal sticking out of the ground and picked it up to show his teachers. When they looked at it closer, they realized it wasn't just a rusty piece of metal. And so they contacted local archaeologists who later confirmed it was an important historical discovery. Steve, yes, I would like you to share me the link about the podcast where the Judeans didn't have beards. Please You probably can't share it in the comments though, because it only lets me share it in the comments. But if you email it to me and I see it, then maybe I can share it in the comments. So thank you very much. The archaeologists from the Cultural Heritage Authority think this sword might have been a single-edged iron sword from the Merovingian period, so the early Viking Age, which is around AD 550 to 800. Single-edged swords are, unsurprisingly, sharp on just the one side. So they are therefore slashing weapons. Potentially, you are, with a slashing weapon, I think traditionally you are up high in a chariot, on horseback, in hand. My experience in hand-to-hand combat, you want a double-edged weapon that's not just a slashy from both sides, but also pokey. You want a sharp tip and you want a double slide slash. If you are cavalry, that's when you're going into the thing of like a scimitar or a curved blade or a single sharp edge, because you're on horseback and you're just doing this. If you're in a sword fight, you want to be able to backhand somebody and slice them as well. So that's interesting. Archaeologists are hoping that by studying this, they can learn more about how the sword was made and used by people at the time. My understanding would be it's a singular slashing weapon. It's not a cut and thrust weapon. I mean, maybe it's a thrust weapon, but it's just weird that you'd have it almost like a chopping weapon. So interesting. As we find out more, I will let you know. T-Bean, those lucky kids to find so much cool stuff. I mean, yeah. It's one of the wonders of growing up in that part, in Europe in general as well. Thank you, Steve. I'm going to put that in the comments now. Steve sent us the link to the podcast. So I'm just going to copy it. Bear with. Look at me doing all of the tech. Copy link. There we go. It's not just a hat rack, is it? And I'm going to post the comment. That should do it. Let's hope it pops up. So this is from Steve. There you go. There we go. Thank you very much for sending that. Hopefully that's been shared with you. As Steve points out, a single-edged weapon like a falchion is a nasty butcher's knife weapon. It's really nice. Absolutely. But I think if you're engaging in like the way we traditionally see Vikings, isn't it? They've got their shield and they've got their sword. And when you're engaging in that kind of fighting, you want the back of your sword to work as well. If you're fighting like this, you want both sides of your sword to work and you want it to be able to poke holes in your opponent like a colander. That's what you want. Just the one side, I always think that's somebody who's up on horseback or up higher. But yes, I look forward to seeing what they figure out. Perfect. Jessie says the YouTube link works. I'm very glad. Good. Thank you for that, Steve. I look forward to checking it out myself as well. Staying with the Vikings, somebody has found 3,000 Viking coins buried in a field, and apparently there could be even more. 2 metal detectorists, them again, have been detectoring it near Rena in Norway. This is the largest Viking Age coin hoard ever found in Norway, and it might continue to grow as the search continues. These coins come from England, Germany, Denmark, and Norway. This is experts from the University of Oslo's Museum of Cultural History think that this treasure was deposited there in around 1047, shortly after the time when coins were being minted in the region. It's been described, understandably, as a historic discovery. The fact that it's from the Viking Age making it all the more spectacular. It is referred to as being completely unprecedented and incredible. It is incredible. The find includes coins minted under Knut the Great, Ethelred II, Otto III, and Harold Hardrada, who tried to invade England. It's got the coins hoard includes coins from the 980s to the 1040s, with foreign coinage dominating the circulation of money in Norway up until Harald Hardrada established a national coinage. Quote, "It's been absolutely unbelievable to stand there and watch these coins be lifted out of the ground and see the quality of the coins. They are so beautiful. We have previously found Viking Age coin hauls containing around 2,000 coins, but never more than 3,000. They have broken a barrier here. It's truly exceptional." And work is going to continue on at the site, and it's been described as a truly unique discovery of the kind one might only experience once in a career. To be present when something like this comes to light is simply a great experience, both professionally and personally. As Steve points out, if you look at these coins in the pictures, a lot of them do appear to have Islamic text on them. Which isn't mentioned in the article, interestingly. I wonder. Interesting. When we get more news on that, I will, of course, update. Brian, why haven't modern day royals brought back the name Canute? Because it's not spelled like that. And the letters are anagrammy in a way that probably would not be approved. CNUT. That's probably why I'm going to go with that. Steve suggested it might have been a stock image used by the journalist. I'm wondering that too, because if it had Islamic text on them, I think that would have been brought up in the article, right? If it had like Quranic surahs on it, surely that's going to be brought up potentially. If I find out more, I will update you. Archaeologists have found a huge Viking textile production site in Denmark, dating back more than 1,000 years. This is a 100,000 square meters, so that's more than 1 million square foot site, where there was an area for processing flax, as well as more than 80 pit houses. These are semi-submerged huts that were used as workshops and dwellings in Viking times. This is 6 miles north of Denmark's second largest city, Aarhus, on the Jutland Peninsula. They have found spindle whorls, weight looms, all of which tells them what's going on in these pit houses. They have found separate areas for production and crafts, plus a single residential home, suggesting that the work is overseen by a powerful individual with control over resources and production. They could see in the trenches that it just keeps on going with houses and pit houses and textile production features. Goods and resources likely brought in from the countryside and settlements like Sofen before entering an extensive international trade network. With a production site of this scale, it can't only be because of the local area. It needs to be understood as part of a greater network, a much bigger international perspective. To have a place like this, you need a very well-organized society with a production line. You also need a market to have the production. The textiles go into that market, and it's got to be much bigger than the local area. The remains of a medieval ship has been discovered in the Netherlands. The was made during excavation work for a sewage system replacement and the construction of a wadi. A worked wooden beam was protruding from the ground caught the attention of an amateur archaeologist. Then that prompted immediate contact with local authorities. The project was too small to require a formal archaeological dig, but the quick response ensured the find could be properly examined. Initial assessments point to 2 possible dates, and based on the location and there being associated pottery fragments, it's possible this vessel belonged to the Carolingian period around the 8th century, but it might also be a cog ship, which will place it close to the 13th or 14th century. The context does raise additional questions. The beam might have come from a ship that ended up in a former channel, possibly after sinking or being carried ashore. It has been classified as an accidental discovery, and steps were immediately taken to preserve the wood by wrapping it to prevent it from drying out. These ship remains are rarely found in the Netherlands, and this is the first discovery of its kind. Researchers hope that the continued study will shed more light on the vessel and the region's medieval maritime activity. Archaeologists are cautioning, though, it might take several months before firm conclusions can be drawn about this object's date and significance. Yeah, Steve said that he sent me an image of a prow from the Viking Ship Museum. Yes, as it shows which bit of the ship that find would come from, pointing out that the deliberate stepping of the part is what gives it away. Yeah, that prow, yeah, I can definitely see what you're talking about there, for sure. That stepping, really interesting, very cool. Look at these. A medieval manuscript telling tales of King Arthur in ink and polished gold is going to auction. This was made between 1290 and 1310, and it's one of the oldest of only 3 privately owned Vulgate cycle manuscripts. So this artist, when making this, punctuated the old French text with 126 miniature illustrations adorned with polished gold leaf that depicts the legendary British King Arthur, his shape-shifting wizard friend Merlin, and also Lancelot and Gawain. It's going to be auctioned in July, and it's projected to fetch more than $2 million. This is a rediscovered manuscript of one of the greatest medieval romances, fundamental to Western culture. The Vulgate cycle, which is also known as the Lancelot Grail cycle, was written anonymously in France in the 13th century. It's a compilation of stories detailing the quest for the Holy Grail, the love affair of Lancelot and Guinevere, the life of Merlin. In the 15th century, Malory draws on the Vulgate to create Le Morte d'Arthur, which is the first English language prose book of the Arthurian legends. Only 3 contemporary Vulgate manuscripts are known to be privately owned. This one is the earliest of the 3 and the most profusely illustrated. It's been dubbed the Clermont-Tonnerre Grail, and the artist behind the illustrations is being named as the anonymous Master of the Liège Apocalypse from France. One illustration we can see is Merlin, an enigmatic half-demon sorcerer in the form of a talking stag. We've also got knights astride horses engaged in a bloody battle. Merlin as a shepherd speaking to Sir Gawain over Camelot's castle walls. Incredible. It's beautifully illustrated with wonderful Arthurian stories in exquisite miniatures. They point out that in some cases, scribes had thought they could rewrite the story and make it more appealing to what either their patrons wanted or what they felt was better for them. This was a standard medieval writing practice. And this one, the stories have been abridged and rewritten, making for a special version. This is very cool, Susie Q. This is very cool. I agree. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to this. I hope it ends up in a public collection so that we can all enjoy it. We shall see. When we get an update, I'll let you know. Medieval buildings found in a village dig. Medieval timber buildings have been found in Leicestershire. There is evidence of domestic activity at the site, which also features stone-built structures thought to be associated with Loddington Hall. They found coins, pottery, and evidence of domestic activity back when it was first excavated in 2025. The medieval settlement was first found during a trench trial at Loddington Hall in 2008, but it was fully investigated it didn't get investigated until 2025, which has now led to this well-preserved medieval and post-medieval features being revealed. They found post holes forming roadside structures set within ditched boundaries. Pottery from these features included shards of Stamford ware, a lead-glazed earthenware produced between the 9th and 13th centuries. These finds are going to be examined by the university's field school team in the hopes it will shed new light on the settlement, its land use, and the changing shape of the village over several centuries. So as and when we get more details on that, I will let you know. Queen Elisenda, one of the most powerful rulers in medieval Europe, her remains have been found in Barcelona. This is in a 14th century monastery. They have found 25 sets of human remains when they opened 8 graves, including one of this medieval queen. The investigation of the tombs revealed the queen was buried in austere clothing inside a small wooden box. But also the tombs of her closest companions included men who had been stabbed to death and a woman who died halfway through pregnancy. Elisenda was 30 years old when she married the 55-year-old James II, just 1 month after the death of his third wife. She then becomes stepmother to his 10 children. James II, also known as James the Just, was king of Aragon and Valencia from 1291 until his death in 1327. Towards the end of his life, Elisenda founded a monastery for the Order of the Poor Clares, a group of Catholic cloistered nuns. After James II died, she then lived in a small rural palace next to the Pedrabales monastery until her death in 1364. When they opened her tomb, they found a box of bones in one corner of a larger space between the church and the cloister that was partitioned into two by a low wall. Likely this was created on purpose to represent the queen as both sovereign next to the church and as a penitent next to the cloister, reinforcing her dual political and spiritual roles. The queen's bones revealed that she was about 70 years old when she died, which lines up with historical information about the monarch. And although she was buried in a plain monastic habit, there were traces of gold embroidered silk textile in the tomb, as well as aromatic herbs, rosemary, and myrtle. In the tomb of Sabrantia Olslet, the monastery's first abbess, they found bones consistent with what's known about her life, but they also found a traumatic injury to her face that happened shortly before or at the time of her death. It appears this injury was made by a knife. Another tomb, thought to belong to the knight Artel de Fosses, contained the bones of 5 people, 2 adult women and 3 children. No male bones that would correspond to Artel were found in the tomb. A long ponytail from one of the women was preserved attached to her skull. Another tomb, thought to belong to Francesca Sapotella, the second abbess and the queen's niece, they found in that tomb the remains of at least 9 people placed there over different time periods. There were 4 male skulls, all of which had stab wounds. And there was also the mummified remains of a woman's torso, which had a 20 to 23 week fetus in the birth canal. Papers and parchment recovered from this tomb, including sheet music, are currently being confirmed, conserved and studied. They are also doing genetic analysis. So far, only 6% of the Queen's genome has been sequenced, but there is plans to use teeth and bone samples to confirm the identities in all the skeletons they found in the tombs, to see if they can establish familial relationships between them, to potentially also investigate the presence of ancient pathogens. So this is going to be happening over the next year, and they're going to be trying to transform the findings into a complete historical interpretation, allowing them to better understand not only who these people were, but also how they lived, how they died, and how they were remembered. Snudpuckle is about the drop spindles they found used all the time, probably even during sleep. Drop spindles are so cool. I'm really interested by drop spindles, tablet weaving. I think that's something I want to invest in, a tablet weaving setup, machine, device. I also really enjoy lucite forks. I like those kind of old crafts. And lucite cord, I have a lucite fork somewhere. I've lost it. Lucite cords are brilliant. They're strong, they're stretchy. What more could you possibly want? All sorts of things. Great for like packing stuff up. If you roll something up tight with a lucite cord, you can carry it really easily. Brilliant. England's oldest paper archive book has been recognised. This is believed to be one of the earliest surviving archival paper books in England, and it's been recognised by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organisation, you know them better as UNESCO. The Red Register, written in medieval abbreviated Latin, dates to the 1300s. It contains records of King's Lynn, including wills from the Black Death, lists of men sent to fight in the 100 Years' War, and freemen of the borough. It's one of 5 items added to the Memory of the World National Register. Through it, we're told, quote, you can see how the town has evolved, has changed, and how the governance was done 700 years ago. It's a wonderful little insight into the world then. It's a unique and irreplaceable item. Alongside the Red Register, other items being added to the UNESCO archive are the Magna Carta and the Domesday Book. Yes, that makes sense. At this time, when this was being made, King's Lynn was called Bishop's Lynn at the time, before the Reformation. But to have something like this created then shows the worth and asset of the period. Quote, in a way, it's just another one of our amazing artifacts we've got at King's Lynn. At a time we're trying to remind ourselves here in King's Lynn and West Norfolk, and remind the country and the world this is a significant place you really need to visit and to boost the economy. It's phenomenal. How cool is that? I like it a lot. And we have got, this is really cool. This is really cool. A rare Tudor tapestry is going back to Oxborough Hall in Norfolk after 100 years. Look at it, will ya? It's gorgeous. So this was sold to an art dealer in 1924 to help fund the running of this Norfolk estate. It's now been returned after it was spotted by a National Trust worker. We have got in here Queen Esther, the Old Testament, from the Old Testament book of Esther, and it used to be in the King's Room at Oxborough Hall in Norfolk. Its location was unknown until last year when it was spotted. The tapestry was then purchased and returned to Oxborough thanks to the help of a grant and funding from multiple bodies. Oxborough was once home to the Bedingfield family and had been for more than 500 years. The 7 tapestries were sold at auction in 1924 by Sir Henry Bedingfield, the 8th Baronet. This was one of several significant collection sales in the early 20th century that were used to pay for death duties and to raise funds for the upkeep of the estate. This, though, is described as an Oxborough heirloom, passed from Beddingfield to Beddingfield through generations. There was the Esther tapestry is in exceptional condition, thankfully. It has benefited from minimal previous conservation and past reweaving. Nothing can take away the splendour of this tapestry. It was thought to have been part of the collection at Oxford since the Tudor period, dating to the reign of Henry VII. It is contemporary with the original furnishing of this Tudor courtier's home. It's said to be a true honour and every art dealer's dream to make a significant contribution to a tapestry's history by returning it to its place of origin. And it's going to be on public display at Oxborough. It's already there. It went on display 9 days ago, 20th of June. It's going to be on display until December of this year. Gorgeous. I wonder if Anne Boleyn ever looked upon this tapestry. I wonder if she did. It's phenomenal. It's a beautiful thing. I'm going to see if I can check it out, get a chance to go and see it. Pound Shop Janeway. Love the name. It is amazing these things have survived. Do you know, there is a book in the kitchens at Hampton Court Palace which talks about the Grace and Favour apartments, and in there are photographs from how the palace looked when there were still Grace and Favour residents. Now, bearing in mind there were still Grace and Favour people living in the Hampton Court until well into the 20th century. In fact, when the fire happened, it was in a Grace and Favour property. In amongst those, you have photographs of the Great Hall. And what you see is the benches are up against the tapestries, resting against the Abraham tapestries. Wild. Rebecca, I'd love a tour if you could get permission. Oh, that would be maybe I'll email Oxford. What's the worst they could do? They could say no, right? I could ask if I could go up there. That would be really cool. Jessie points out the blue colour is really vivid. Steve said it's indigo or woad. Yeah, very likely. So a lot of these are with many of these tapestries. So with the Abraham tapestries, we sort of think that kind of fading of them is something that's happened over centuries, probably more likely closer to decades, really, because they're natural dyes, and natural dyes do fade. But at the time, that woad that you can still see as being quite a bright blue would have been even brighter than it is here. If you want to get a really sort of permanent blue, then you're looking at lapis lazuli, grinding that and making paints and things like that. That tends to be what you're using for the blue of Mary Mother of Jesus's dress. But to get that, you have to be in a trading relationship with somebody who can get you into Afghanistan, because that's where it's coming from. Clue wonders if Natasha and Daniel Bedingfield are connected to the Bedingfield baronets. I also have no idea how common the name is. I think also the other thing that we have to flag is that if you go back far enough, we're all descendants of Edward I, because at that number of generations removed, you've got, well, first of all, you've got a generation collapse, because there weren't as many people as that on Earth. So at that time, so you're not actually related to that many people. It's because of the inbreeding. So we all relate back to Edward I. I mean, particularly if you're British, but European generally, you're all related. So this is very cool. Also, mesh detectors once again. Look at what this lucky man has found. A 16th century gold diamond cluster ring. Wow. Found in November 2024. Stuart Jones, 42 from Solihull. Understandably overwhelmed with joy, finding the ring bearing 8 diamonds. And the proceeds of this ring sale are going to be split with the landowner. It's expected to go between £15,000 and £20,000. It went under the hammer on the 23rd of June. I'm not sure what it went for yet. If I find out, I will, of course, update you. It is gorgeous. It was examined by the British Museum, and it's a flower head bezel composed of a cluster of 8 hogback diamonds, which is very rare, although 2 of them are loose. Just 2. Brilliant. It was found to be 19.2 carats, which is the exact gold standard set by Edward I in 1300. Can you imagine plucking that out of the ground? It's really pretty. It's gorgeous. Love it. Next up, it's not the same as the Otzi yeast, but it's kind of adjacent. And I wonder what you think about this too. So, researchers have transformed wooden fragments from a 17th century shipwreck into a pair of stylish maxi dresses. Oh, so Jessie's found it. Thank you. Update on, let me go back. Hang on. The diamond ring unearthed by a mesh detectorist in the Cotswolds, hailed as a once-in-a-lifetime find, has fetched £17,000 at auction. So that is sort of smack bang in the middle of what they had said it was going to go for. Thank you for that. Find that update. Brilliant. Thank you, Jessie. Wonderful. So what are we thinking here? Scientists at Aalto University in Finland saved pieces from the Hatipera wreck and turned them into textile fragments. So in 2019, the remains of a 19th century cargo ship were found beneath a hotel parking lot. Now they have incorporated some of the historic ship into 2 maxi dresses. Centuries-old wood has been turned into fibre, which are then spun into a tannish brown yarn with a subtle sheen. It's beautiful. Then they used AI to knit them into a pair of long sleeveless dresses. They call them frocks here. So when they found the wreck, it was discovered and then documented and preserved by conservationists. And they did this with as much as the structure as they could, but they couldn't save everything. So they ended up with leftover pieces of wood that were destined for the trash. Really? So rather than do that, they wanted to give the wooden fragments a second life. Why are we binning them? Is that normal? I'm not an archaeologist or a conservationist or a conservator, rather. Is that normal? Do we bin stuff like that? Okay. Don't know. So they decided to try turning the wood into textile using a special eco-friendly process developed at the university. So they removed the exterior layer of shipwrecked wood to expose its inner core, which they found to be free of impurities. They then shred the core, turn it into a pulp. Then they convert the wood pulp into strong silky fibres that is then spun into yarn. They didn't bleach or dye it, so that the shipwreck's original colour could shine through. They then transfer it to the knitting studio at the university, where experimental AI made a pattern to knit the identical dresses. The surface of each dress is designed to be inspired by wood grain and digital noise, whatever that means. They then use a knitting machine to produce the dresses, 2 seamless forms, and not an inch of yarn went to waste. I don't know. I don't know. See, at first I thought this was wool caulking for in between the planks, but it doesn't seem like it is. It seems like they've made the planks into this wool. Have I misunderstood? Have I misunderstood? They took the exterior layer of the shipwrecked wood to expose its inner core, which they found to be free of impurities. They then shredded that core and turned it into pulp, made the wood pulp into silky fibres, which then became the yarn. So I don't think this is the caulk. This is the plank. Why would they have been binning? Why would they have been binning bits of the ship anyway? Jennifer, did they say what type of wood was used? Let me look. No? Wood. Just wood. In a way, I kind of think it's cool that it's preserved. It's better than it going in the bin, but why are we binning it? Pixie, piano player. My ship came in and looked peons. I'm wearing it. Some trillionaire, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Venomous. Maybe they could have been too damaged or small for reassembly. I kind of get that, but surely you store them. You don't send them to the trash heap, right? I mean, maybe not display it or put it back in the reconstruction, but why are we binning it? That's my question. Maybe. So they're wearing a boat. Yeah, it seems they are indeed wearing a boat. Steve's going to have a look into it. Cool, thank you. I do think it's interesting. Maybe, yeah, they are just bits. Maybe. They can't possibly store every piece of everything they find, can they? Maybe not. I mean, maybe not. They have got pretty big storehouses, and also we are always told that museums can't repatriate things, so they have nothing to display. So they can't be that. I don't know. I think the dress is interesting. I think the technique is interesting. I don't know how I feel about it. So I thought I'd chuck it out there. Yeah, I mean, I get they had documented every piece, but like I said previously, we don't know where our understanding and our testing of historical artifacts is going to go. So getting rid of it means that you're unable to use it if there's a possible future technology that we haven't even conceived of yet that could be really vital. Maybe, but also I mean, look at what I'm sat in front of. I'm a hoarder. I'm low-key a hoarder. So I'm a pack rat. I need everything all the time. My husband says I've never found a flat surface that I didn't want to put something on. There are no flat surfaces that are clear in my house. There are like tchotchkes and everything everywhere. Like, I just love things and doodads. So yeah, I don't know. I have feelings about it, but maybe that's my own need for therapy. Let's call it what it is. We have more. 400 gold coins. Oh, okay. So Steve said they dissolved the wood fibres in xylene to create a fibre called tencel. Okay. Marianne Rose, they didn't bin it, they made a dress from it. Exactly. So I'm in a way, I'm happy they weren't binned. But it's weird to me. They were like, we may as well make a dress out of it, because otherwise we would have binned them. Why are we binning stuff? Why was that ever an option? That's my question. Maybe that's because I can't bin anything. I have a problem. I have a problem. 400 gold coins are cracking a centuries-old shipwreck mystery. Sank off the coast of England in 1633. This is the ill-fated Dutch trading ship Dom van Keulen. It left Morocco for the Netherlands in the fall of 1633 with a hefty cargo, including more than 9,000 gold coins. Before it could get to home, it sank off the coast of England. All of the crew, luckily, survived, and were likely, and most of the cargo is thought to have been salvaged off the sinking. The ship was loaded with 150 bags of gum arabic, 64 bags of saltpeter, 320 goat skins, and 9,000 Barbary ducats and other Moroccan coins. These originate from the Barbary coast, which is present-day Morocco. In the 16th and 17th century, Dutch merchants were actively trading manufactured goods for pure West African gold from the Sardian Sharifs. This Arab Sharifian dynasty ruled Morocco between 1549 and 1659. This West African gold would be melted down by Dutch officials to make their own coins, which then became the most widely accepted trade currencies in the world. 400 of the ship's gold coins were embedded in the seabed until 1995, when a Southwest Maritime Archaeology group discovered the wreck. In 1995, quote, the discovery of African gold from under the sea off the coast of Devon was an amazing discovery that raised so many questions about how it came to be there. Now we finally know the exact ship that carried the gold lading and cargo. The story can now be told of how a Dutch ship carrying North African gold was wrecked off the English coast, making this a discovery of international importance. It reminds us how much there is still to be found under our seas. This one's another interesting one. They have discovered an alteration to a Rembrandt. Layers of overpaint have been removed from a 17th century painting to confirm that it was painted by Rembrandt, and to reveal that a turban on one of the figures had been replaced with a traditional soft Dutch cap. Nope, a Dutch soft cap. That's what I said was different, and I take it back. A Dutch soft cap. And Brian said, "No, I said Under the Sea. It's stuck in my head." We watched Little Mermaid the other day. Gabriel was unsure of what was happening. I think he sort of ended up feeling bad for Ursula in the end. This is Let the Little Children Come to Me. It's about tolerance, with Christ blessing children as well as adults. Rembrandt is depicting a crowd of diverse figures. As well as the man in the turban, people from the Jewish and Christian faiths are also represented. It seems that the artist was inspired by the multicultural, religiously diverse streets of 17th century Holland. When he painted it, faith rivalries rife, refugees are coming into Holland, many settling in Leiden, which is Rembrandt's birthplace, to the dismay of the population there. When Rembrandt starts his painting in 1627, Leiden's undergoing an extraordinary humanitarian crisis. The 30 Years' War is at its height. Hundreds of thousands of people are flooding into the Dutch Republic as refugees. And in 1626, 1,500 weavers had arrived there alone with their wives and children. It's estimated that Leiden took something like 10,000 refugees in 1 year. This painting, which measures 106 centimetres by 80.5 centimetres, was found in 2014. Now it's been attributed to Rembrandt. It's going to be auctioned by Sotheby's on the 1st of July. It's estimated it's going to go for between 8 million to 12 million pounds. The chair of Sotheby's told The Guardian, quote, "It was made into a more traditional, conventional treatment of the subject by later overpainting. The original having a diverse cast of characters, including the prominent turban figure in the middle. The foreground of the painting was left unfinished, completed rather crudely by a later artist. Restoration removed those additions, demonstrating the extent to which the painting was simplified or sanitized by subsequent intervention. While Rembrandt had painted a naked child in the crowd, the later artist had clothed him, as we can see the sort of side by sides. I think the original is far, far more interesting, personally. In no other image, also the in this painting, Rembrandt depicts various members of his family, including his parents and himself. The young man who's seemingly craving forward to see the miraculous event while looking directly at the viewer. In no other image does Rembrandt bring his family together so completely. His parents had hoped he would pursue a career in law, administration, or the church, but then they saw his talent and they funded his artistic training. It's thought this work might have been produced shortly after his apprenticeship with the leading Amsterdam artist Pieter Lastman, that he's basically using this to show his parents that their investment had paid off. This was put on display at Sotheby's in London on the 27th of June, and we'll see how much it goes for when it's sold. It's beautiful. I think the original is beautiful. I love it. It's so cool. A UK museum, London's Gardening Museum, is hurrying to acquire an 18th century portrait of a black gardener, a black British gardener. This is by an unknown artist, and it depicts John Utzelman, a renowned gardener who lived and worked in Wales. He sat for this portrait in 1754 when he was in his late teens. He's in a blue suit and waistcoat. It's been on display at the Garden Museum since 2023. But the hope is that it will be permanently installed beside Portrait of a Black Gardener, another 1905 portrait by Harold Gilman that was acquired in 2013. So they want to celebrate the heroes of the gardening world, of which this gentleman is. What we know about John is derived from a biography that's written in 1888 by a man called Robert Isaac Jones. His source was his grandfather, who had known John the gardener. According to the biography we get, he was born in 1736. John was then abducted from West Africa by slave traders when he was 8 years old. He was taken to the Itzmillan estate in Crickheath by the Wynne family. They trained him in horticulture and employed him as a gardener. He excelled and was reported as working, quote, more or less perfectly. He is described as being handsome. Apparently, many local women were competing for his affections. He eventually meets a woman called Margaret Griffith, another worker on the estate, and they run away and get married in 1768. The couple had 7 children, 5 of which lived on to adulthood, and some of their descendants still live in the region today. He did lose his job by eloping, but he then went on to work as a land steward on a nearby farm. He later would go back and work for the Wynne family again. They gifted him a cottage as payment for his many years of service. He died of jaundice, apparently, in 1786, and was commemorated on his tombstone by the poem Dafydd Sion Symes. Born in India, to Wales I came. So the Gardening Museum has put on an online campaign asking for public donations to complement its grant funding applications. The hope is they will raise £420,000 to acquire this portrait. Bev Margaret, yeah, employed, paid a job. Of course, transported against his will. And clearly adaptable, skillful, and rewarded for it, even though the eloping probably annoyed people. I don't know quite how and why he had to elope. But seemingly it didn't cause that much distress and unrest because he gets his job back in the end. Pixie descendants. So he had 5 children which lived to adulthood. Some of their descendants still live in the region today. He's not Nosferatu. He's having vampire children. What a cool thing. A painting bought in a charity shop for $100 in the US has sold for £190,000. Art teacher Helen Plotkin bought this work by Scottish colourist F.C.B. Cadell in White Plains, New York in 1966. It then hung in her living room for 60 years. It sold in Edinburgh for £189,200, including buyer's premium. The background of the painting only became clear when Helene's son, Barry, started researching it and took its valuation last year. They deciphered the signature in the upper right corner using AI and thus confirmed the artist was Francis Campbell Llew Cadell, known as one of 4 artists known as the Scottish colourists, active in the early 20th century, renowned for his stylish portraits of Edinburgh New Town interiors and his vibrant still lifes. So she said that the painting stood out when she spotted it. It had an undeniable regal presence, but it was the colour theory at play that held my attention. The way pastels were integrated into the composition was both interesting and bold. It was clearly the work of a significant hand with a deep understanding of light and form. Her son said, "We were, as you can imagine, delighted and astounded when we found out the identity of the artist and the model. For Mum, it was confirmation of her artistic eye and ability to recognise great talent." How cool is that? Now then, Major Oak, the tree connected to the Robin Hood story. It's one of our most iconic trees here in the UK. And it's thought now that it has died because no new shoots appeared in spring. It's thought that this tree has been in Sherwood Forest in Nottinghamshire for as much as 1,200 years. Work has been done to protect the tree, which of course has attracted millions of visitors over its life. But they did know that it was in a natural decline. This is the tree's first spring with no leaves, so they believe that Major Oak has died. They're not quite sure why it's died, but there's potentially a combination of issues, including years of, quote, well-intentioned structural intervention and huge amounts of human activity around the tree that could be major contributors. However, the effects of climate change, including recent heat waves and droughts, have compounded the challenges it would normally be facing. However, Major Oak will remain standing in the forest as a monument for people and for wildlife. Saplings from this tree have also been planted from all across the world because this is even dead. This is a home to an incredibly biodiverse ecosystem. It's massive. So it is staying up, presumably for as long it doesn't pose a threat to anybody or anything. Brilliant. It's very sad that it's died, but I'm glad it's staying up. Steve saw Major Oak in 86 to 7. It was classified as dangerous then. I mean, there were still people climbing on it well into the 90s and aughts, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. Steve says they need to let it fall and become recyclable, the natural rotting process. I mean, I think the thing is, if they now took away the struts and the structures that are holding it up, it would just collapse. I think they probably won't do any more intervention. So we'll see. Any more updates, I will, of course, let you all know. A Picasso stolen has turned up during a drug raid near Paris, reportedly having been taken from a storage facility. This artwork, we don't know which one it is, it's been authenticated but not revealed, is apparently worth tens of millions of dollars. It reportedly depicts Marie-Thérèse Walter, who is one of Picasso's most famous models. He met her on the streets of Paris in 1927. She was a teenager. He was 45. Gross. He watched her emerge from the depths of the subway and thought she had an interesting face. He later claimed he dreamt of Walter before they met. He took me to the studio, Walter recalled. He looked at me. He seduced me. He kept looking at my face. When I left, he said, come back tomorrow. And afterwards, it was always tomorrow. Nah. Four people were arrested in relation to a drug trafficking case, and one of them confessed in court to stealing the painting from a storage facility in Paris where he'd worked as a security guard. The theft of the painting is apparently opportunistic. As often happens in such cases, the gang then had no idea what to do with it. Too hot to handle, I think. But yes, it has been found since. We have got our last piece of new news. And this is something that felt incredibly personal to me this week. I don't know where everybody is living in the world or staying currently, but the week that we had last week in London and the southeast of England was scary. So Dominic's daycare closed every afternoon. I was going into the theatre, so we'd pick Dominic up, we'd put him in for a nap because he was hot and tired and exhausted, and then he'd wake up from his nap ratty. Understandable, he's not yet 2, and so he spent every afternoon last week in the bathtub just under the cold tap, and if you try to take him out from the cold tap, he'd try and claw your face off. He was not happy. It was so hot. I, of course, was doing Monarchs Anonymous at a theatre in Victoria. So I had to go in by bus or tube or both. On one of the days, I got on the Jubilee line and I sat down on the Jubilee line and I looked at the woman opposite me. We made eye contact and I just let slip the F-bomb. It was like getting into a steam room, in that, you know, when you're in a steam room and your arms are just slick with sweat because it has nowhere to evaporate to. So it wasn't just I was sweating and it was going away, or I was dripping with sweat. My entire body, it was like being in a steam room. And I suddenly thought we went into a tunnel. We left the station, we go into a tunnel, and the train paused in a tunnel. And I suddenly felt what I can only tell you was just unbridled panic. Because I thought to myself, if this tube stops here, if we get stuck, people are going to get really sick really fast. And the Jubilee isn't even the hottest train line. I cannot imagine what it would have been like to be on the Central line. It was wild. It was wild. Fortunately, the theatre we were in was air conditioned, and we did make that a selling point for the show. And it was lovely to be in an air conditioned theatre, because I mean, there are theatres in London that are having to have water breaks, or they're being told they might have to pull shows because it's just so hot. So some Paris museums are closing or reducing their hours amid the heat wave. Rightly so. A museum should be a place of respite, maybe, but if it's not got air conditioning, it's going to be unbearable. I was at the Tower today. It was a cooler day. Outside was pretty cool. if you, in a heat wave, when you're at the tower, the first day of the heat wave, being inside the buildings of the tower is delightful. The stone is lovely and cool. If there's been 3 days of heat wave, at that point, the tower, these old stone buildings become ovens and they remain hot. So even today, being outside at the tower was fine. You walk into one of the buildings just running with sweat. Unbelievable. So the temperatures in Paris have exceeded 100 degrees Fahrenheit. France is setting apparently national heat records. 55 people have lost their lives to drowning nationwide since June the 18th. Public events have been cancelled. Public alcohol consumption has been banned. Notre Dame Cathedral has restricted access to its towers. The Palais de Tokyo has announced an exceptional closure. The Eiffel Tower closed at 4 p.m. It's usually open until late at night. The Musée Carnavalet closed all of its rooms except for a temporary exhibition, which is the only space that's air-conditioned. The Louvre, normally open till 6 p.m. or around 9 p.m., depending on the day of the week, has announced it's going to be closing at 4. These museums are vulnerable. They're not fully adapted for climate change. And it's already hot. And if you then have tens of thousands of people walking through it, heating up the spaces further, they can't protect the works of art. They can't protect the building's fabric. They can't protect the artworks themselves. So it becomes dangerous, not only for people inside, but also for the works of art. And installing aircon isn't that easy either, because you then have to properly climate control it. It's not going to be expensive. It's not going to be cheap to do that. It's going to be really, really expensive. It's been dangerous here. And I'm aware that other countries have heat and humidity that matches or eclipses this. What I am going to say is the countries that are having those in the States, for example, many of the houses are not. First of all, they have air conditioning. Second of all, they aren't built to insulate against cold in quite the same way that our cities are. London, the ground under London is clay. It holds the heat. So the tubes are cooking. The ground is also cooking. It's hot. We took out a lot of our tree-lined boulevards. So they're putting them back in now, but trees cool it down. I was genuinely fearful for people up in the tower blocks, because these tower blocks, they are so insulated for heat. The house that the flat that we live in, we have not turned our heating on. We've lived here 5 years. We haven't turned our heating on. We keep our windows open till mid-December, at least. We've reopened them by February. But there is just no need to have the heating on. It's hot enough in winter. So in summer, it does become quite unbearable. And people are in their own homes getting heat stroke. So yeah, I understand why they're closing. It is risky. So I hope if you are in a place where a heat wave is hitting, you are managing to stay cool and safe. Make sure you stay well hydrated, keep your body temperature cool, don't take any silly risks. And yeah, do what you used to do. Find aircon, supermarkets, cinemas, etc. And it looks like we're going to have another hot week next week. So best of luck, and look after yourselves. Let's move on to the ding dongs. Here we go. The Cern Abbas giant. Volunteers have been restoring one of the most famous ding dongs in all of Britain. This is a 56 or 880 feet tall chalk giant. It's got a naked man holding a club with a pubescent member depicted there. Over time, rain and plant growth has eroded and softened the lines. Nobody needs their lines softened, do they? So they have carried out major restoration every decade. The previous effort took place in 2019, but however, it has been shown to be losing definition already. Wetter winters have washed chalk from the trenches. So they begin by removing old chalk and clearing vegetation. Fresh chalk then goes back into the trenches. Volunteers spend hours walking up and down these steep hills carrying heavy bags. About 300 people joined this year's project, some coming from nearby communities while others came in from elsewhere. This happened during an unusually hot spell in May. I'm sure they weren't doing it just now. So it's still debated why the figure was created. Some studies that were done by the National Trust indicate that it dates from between 700 to 1100 CE, so late Anglo-Saxon period. One theory links it to fertility traditions, perhaps the club carrying man is Hercules. This year, the work has got a lot of importance because a fundraising campaign recently got £330,000 together to buy more than 130 hectares or 320 acres of surrounding land. The area is viewed as being highly significant, and future surveys and excavations might explain how this giant once fit into the landscape and the role it played in medieval England. Now, though, volunteers are working to replace the lost chalk one trench at a time and to keep this centuries-old figure alive and well, so to speak. Next up, a historic Highland fortress has been damaged by vandals. This is Ding Dong in the most traditional sense of the word, and it's our last one. This is old Inverloch Castle near Fort William. The ruins of the medieval fortress currently closed to the public because safety inspection and conservation work is being carried out. However, security fencing has been breached on at least 2 different occasions in the past month, leading to damage being caused to the castle walls. Historic Environment Scotland is investigating the extent of the vandalism and the potential impact on its plans to improve visitor access. The castle was built in the 12th century by the powerful Comyn family to dominate the southern part of Great Glen. It was captured by Robert the Bruce as he consolidated his control over Scotland. Its well-preserved ruins have remained largely unchanged since then. A spokesperson said, quote, despite currently being closed due to ongoing conservation work, Inverloch Castle has been the subject of recent incidents of vandalism. They said repairing the damage caused by vandals diverts important resources away from the essential conservation and maintenance that's already been planned at the castle. Quote, conservation work has been ongoing at the castle. Last year, we carried out significant masonry repairs to the southeast wall and entrance arch and installed soft capping to the wall heads. Further work was programmed for this summer with the aim of improving visitor access to the site, but the feasibility of these works will now be determined by the level of damage caused by the vandalism and any required repairs. That's very annoying. I wish they wouldn't have done that. So as we get more news about that or potentially a culprit, I will, of course, update you. Now we are moving on to events and exhibition, and we have got a few of these this week. So first up, news. We've talked about it before. The Bio Tapestry is going to be on display at the British Museum, opening on the 10th September 2026 and running until the 11th of July 2027. Now, this is an expensive ticket. I believe the time slots are 45 minutes a piece. I don't know if you can overstay those. They are currently open to members. I'm not sure when standard ticketing will go out, but for adults wanting to go, standard pricing, an adult is £33. Off peak, £27. Super off peak, so that's term time weekdays 3:30 to 4:20. Oddly specific, that is £25. This is not cheap. Members get in for free. Booking is required. If you're under 16, it's free. If you're a student, if you are 16 to 25, if you are a job seeker, then that is all 25, regardless of what peak time you're going. Disabled visitors with a free assistant, also £25. Art Pass does take off some of the pricing. This is not going to be affordable for a lot of people, and I understand that they've had to build a purpose-built space. I do get that. This is steep, I find. It may be worth it to you to look into the price of a British Museum membership for a year. Particularly, I think if you wanted to go maybe more than once, maybe some of these memberships, sometimes museum, I'm not sure about the British Museum one, sometimes the museum membership, a way of getting you in is they give you guest passes. So maybe if you buy a museum membership and you get 2 or 3 or 4 guest passes, so you can bring a friend along, maybe this is the reason to get a membership to the British Museum. It's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. I'm probably still going to go and see it, but it's expensive. But it's the draw is such that I'm prepared to pay £33 to go and see it. So they know what they're pricing it at, don't they? They know what they're doing. We also have the New York Historical is doing something on revolutionary women. This opened on May 29th. It's going until October 25th, 2026. And it's asking the question, how did the revolution and living through the experience of war impact New York's women? How did women impact the revolution in New York and beyond? Very interesting. So if you're in New York, check it out. Let us know what you think of it. This is for one that's in Dumfries in Scotland. However, if you're in the UK, there are going to be various places over the summer which are going to have all sorts of reenactment. There will be jousts at various locations. I know that Hampton Court is having a joust. Other castles will be too. This one is at Llew. They are doing a joust on the 25th and 26th of July. So ticket prices start at £9. Similarly, a bunch of other places will also be doing jousts. Every summer, it's jousting season. It's a good time. New York here, this is the Morgan Library and Museum. They've got an exhibition, Tarot, Renaissance Symbols, Modern Visions. This opened June 26th and it's running through to October 4th. I should have mentioned, in addition to having links in the descriptions that are numbered for tickets, you'll also see where I've been able to find it, that there is accessibility information for each of these sites. Now, I haven't included accessibility information for the jousting at Llew because it's outside, and they do say on this little bit, not a separate accessibility page, that there are ramps up to where the jousting is going to happen, so it is accessible. Yes, Scarlett, I'm very interested by the Tarot exhibition. If anybody gets a chance to see it, do let me know. Let me know what the book's like. Is it worth checking it out? It does look cool. Wheezy asks, will it be too hot for jousting? No. I mean, will the people doing the jousting be sweaty? Yeah. Would I love to get into a padded gambeson, padded coif, and plate armor and get onto a horse and run about with a big stick? No, I would not. I would not. However, they'll run at the lists maybe for 10, 15, 20 minutes. They will then be got off of their horse. They will then be stripped down to their shirts and they will be able to cool off. Because, yeah, it is hot, but it's not so hot that they can't fight in it. Bearing in mind that if you want to do your battling in medieval and early modern Europe, you're going to want to do it in summer because you don't want to get bogged down in water. So it is sweaty, but you're in something reflective, so it is reflecting the heat away. It's the padded jackets. They are horrendous. I remember when we used to do a lot of kind of stuff where there was fight calls or there was somebody who was a fighter who was just in the padded jacket all day. And over the course of the summer, that thing never dried out. Like the guys would be putting on somebody else's wet gambeson from the day before. It just never dried out. In fact, they probably would have been cooler in the plate armor because it would have reflected some of the heat away. Just in the gambeson, rank, absolutely rank. That thing stood up by itself. Project Trainbow's camp. Look, I haven't, in these jousts, I'll be honest with you, I haven't heard of a horse getting injured or suffering. It may have happened. I haven't heard of it. I have heard of the jousters getting injured. What you are seeing a lot more now, though, is rather than being a reconstructed or reenacted joust where they're really hitting each other with sticks, what you're seeing more and more is stunt riding. So it's very high octane, but it's stunt riding. So it's safer for the individuals involved and the horses, and they are very well cared for. I haven't heard of injuries, and they're also armored, but I'm sure it's quite hot and uncomfortable too. So I don't know. Jessie, that is incredibly kind of you. Thank you so much. That's really very kind and very generous of you. Thank you very, very much. Yeah. Well, tapestry tickets paid for. That's wonderful. I will let you know what I think when I go and see it. Thank you ever so much. We have also got, if you're in Florida in the US, Jessie, I'm going to have fun and I will absolutely let you know how it is. I'm not sure if I'll be allowed to take photographs or film or anything, but I will maybe do some shorts about going in and what I think about it. We've got this here. This is Florida, Summer in the Pavilion, the Flagler Museum. They have got a bunch of hands-on arts and crafts and STEM projects aimed at kids, suitable for children ages 3 to 12, activities from the Gilded Age. This looks super fun. If you do get a chance to go and check this out with your little humans, if you've got some little humans in your life, let us know how it goes. It looks great. So you've got things like, it's a self-guided program. Activities might include engineering challenges like building bridges inspired by the railroads and infrastructure that transform Florida. There's art projects like creating nature paintings and other Gilded Age creations, each of which is designed to help visitors make meaningful connections between history, innovation, and imagination. It looks so fun. There is also things, if you're not there with kids, the Summer in the Pavilion has got all sorts of opportunities to step through and learn all about this period. So I think it's not just for kids, but there is a real cool kid offer available. Susie Q. Oh, that's very kind. Wish you lived in England and could go to all these places. Well, I see these American ones. The tarot exhibition, this at the pavilion. I mean, my eldest would love this, building railway bridges. He'd have the time of his life. Oh, Brian, apparently it's pronounced Flagler, the Flagler Museum. Cool. Snudpuckle says that the tarot set artwork is amazing. Oh, cool. Okay. That's so cool. Our final one, this is Washington, D.C. This is the new home for exploration. This is the National Geographic Museum of Exploration that opened on the 26th of June. Let me know. Have you been? What's it like? Is it cool? It looks pretty fun. It looks very shiny. Museum of Exploration, very interesting. If you haven't been, if you've got plans to go, let us know what you think of it. If you get in there, maybe send me some pictures, some sneaky pics of what you're seeing. I would really appreciate it. That is what I have for you this month. So thank you all so much for chatting with me in this June History News Live. We are back to our normal scheduling, so there will be a premiere at 4 p.m. on Friday. Going forward, I think there'll be pretty much all at 4 p.m. for the rest for July. And then at the last Monday in July, we will be having a History News Live, unless I happen to be on my hollybobs, in which case it may have to be the first Monday. But I think actually the way it pans out, I think what we're going to have to do is I will not be by my computer. So our July History News is going to be on the 3rd of August. So please do send me your news items as you're seeing them, and we'll be talking about it on the first Monday of August. Oh, Subi, you checked out the Gotham video, the history of Gotham. I'm glad you loved it, and I'm pleased to have got a comic book fan in as well. It was a really fun video to make, and I really was inspired by the comic book connection. So I'm glad you enjoyed it too. Brilliant. And I'm also really grateful for the interest shown in me talking about the wool in the Houses of Parliament. So I'm going to see what more I can find out about that. Maybe even get a chance to go in and talk to somebody. I'm going to send some emails and ask for some favors, because why not? Right. I hope if you're still in your Monday, you're having a lovely Monday. Indeed, I hope you're going to have a wonderful rest of the week and rest of your June and a great July. And we are going to chat more about the history news at the start of August. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you in the premieres that we're going to be doing as well. But for now, I hope you're staying cool. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're going to have a lovely day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in your hours. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, hype, bell, all of those good things, buttons, sharing, comments. The more you interact, the more it's supposed to help me out. For now, though, I'm going to go and get ready, sit in front of a fan, get ready for some bedtime. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you all in my premiere. But for now, do take care of yourself. And I am going to end the stream now. Bye.